for next week's board meeting, which will be held on Tuesday, June 16th. So just to go over a few of ongoing resignations, leaves, and transfers, then we'll go into some motions and some of the agenda items. So just to begin a little bit, as we are right now, this is really busy time of the year for our human resources and our principals and our staff as we look to bring on new talent as people either retire or shift. And we do have a few resignations on the agenda here. We have Victoria Elrod from the position of paraprofessional, Michelle Lentz from the position of head custodian, and Maddie Walsh from the position of paraprofessional. We will also be adding Sarah Bear from STEM specialist teacher at the elementary school. And I'll get an opportunity on June 16th to talk a little bit about Sarah, but she's done an incredible job of building a STEM kind of ecosystem throughout our school district, really building and those multiple strands of STEM and bringing that not just into a special, but into several other elements throughout elementary, middle, and high school. So we wish Sarah the best as she transfers to a different school district. Under employment, we're excited to welcome Kristen Wentz. She did an incredible job last year filling in as a fourth grade teacher, and we are excited to bring her on full-time and to continue with our team. Haley Sherman. Haley did an incredible job last year as well, kind of coming on for us, doing some long-term subbing, and we're excited to bring Haley on full-time as well. We're looking and asking for your consideration of waiving Board Policy 405, the anti-nepotism policy, to welcome Ashley Demmel. Ashley is the sister of Lauren Demmel, who's at our elementary school, and Ashley is a really skilled teacher, and we're excited to have her join our team as an autistic support teacher. We are excited to have Elena Andonacio join us as a long-term substitute in learning support at the elementary school, and Raina Summers as an elementary school teacher, as well as Matthew Kloss as autistic support elementary teacher. And both Raina and Matthew come with great experiences, so they're going to be great additions to the Susquenita School District community. We have a voluntary transfer. We have Ashley Stone looking to transfer to be our new elementary school librarian with the retirement of Mrs. Cheryl Gross. And speaking of Mrs. Cheryl Gross, we're excited that she is on here as a substitute teacher. So we're hoping that she doesn't get too excited about retirement, and we can utilize and continue to utilize the talents of Mrs. Gross. We have Alexander Cutman as one of our summer custodians, as well as several changes of status where teachers earn credits, and because of their credits, as well as the amount of time that they spend, and based on the negotiated agreement, they've got the ability to move across the scale because of their hard work inside and outside of the classroom. We have several athletic coaches and volunteers for the fall of 2026 as we work through. We'll continue to add those as the finalization of required paperwork comes into the office and gets reviewed. We have Joe Krismer as head football coach, Jay Jenkins, assistant coach soccer boys, Kylie Paulson, assistant coach cheerleading, Megan Brandt, head coach cheerleading, Amy Rabin, volunteer football. Thank you very much, Amy. Brian Waters, football volunteer, Josh Miller, football volunteer, Reagan Hording, field hockey volunteer, Paige Browse, field hockey volunteer, Michael Kurtz, football volunteer, and Matthew Magill, soccer boys volunteer. Going into some motions for next, any questions on anything at that point? So moving on to some of the motions, we do have a motion to approve Braylon McKee and Ariana Ryland Jr. to be our student representatives to the board. And they've done an incredible job over the last couple of years, and they're going to continue to really get that voice of the student body, to be able to kind of provide another lens in some of the questions that the student body may have, or some of the questions that they may have as representatives giving back to the student body. Under motions, we have a recommended to approve our workman's compensation insurance renewal, and we're working on the finalization of those numbers as we have gone through some trainings to be able to work through that program for a discount. So we're working through those numbers to get that finalization. We have a motion to authorize the Director of Financial Affairs to make budgetary fund transfers at part of our end-of-the-year closeout. Motion to approve an MOU with the United Way for early school readiness, and the United Way for access to healthcare. So part of that is that liaison who will help to navigate through some of the challenges in the community with healthcare. And with the parental permission, they will help work through that with our contracted social worker to this access from the United Way and this representative. Both of these are no cost, and we thank the United Way and all of whoever within the community, businesses and organizations who give to the United Way and the greater community in which the services that they provide. An MOU with the Susquenita Education Association. So there are two kind of, it's no additional compensation, but it's breaking apart a couple co-curriculars to delineate between a fall play and a high school musical. So separating those two, I believe it was costumes, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody out there, and I think the other one was set design. And then a motion to approve the purchase of a used 2023 Ford Escape from McGuire's Ford.
Can we just back up on the MOU?
Certainly can.
So I'm only asking because this is the point of this meeting is discussion, I guess.
Yeah.
So did we not encompass that in the negotiated agreement
That's correct.
when we redid it? So is the MOU to change the negotiated agreement moving forward, or is it just for like a season?
Yes, well, the negotiated agreement itself says by March, we have the ability to sit down and discuss any of the co-curriculars. But prior to that, there was the previous co-curriculars that were in the negotiated agreement would have fall play, and they would have a number next to it 2, or High School Musical 2 for these positions. And it didn't happen in this particular negotiated agreement. It had one number. So at that point, it was split between the two. It was already being done that way, but this way it clearly represents that the fall play and somebody in the fall play could be different than somebody in the high school musical in the spring. Just for 2 positions.
Oh, okay. Just costumes, is that right? Or and something else? Or stage direction, because those are different, 2 different people.
Here are the positions, I apologize. So they are going to be as follows: high school costume advisor, high school makeup advisor, high school lighting advisor, and high school stage crew advisor. All this MOU does is basically breaks down that the compensated rate before was $1,008, $504, $1,008, and $1,260. Now it breaks it down into $504 per production, meaning fall, and it denotes here, refers to fall and spring musical. High school makeup advisor, $252 per production, which is that number before, and $504 for high school lighting, and high school stage crew advisor, $634 for production. So it kind of just delineates the separation of the 2 programs.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Absolutely.
Can I provide a little bit more framework on that too, just maybe
Sure.
for clarification for the board? As Dr. Fox said, built into the CBA was the option for us to revisit the co-curriculars each year if it was deemed necessary by both entities, right? But that revisiting had to happen before March 1. When it came to the spring musical and payment out, that's when the association realized that they had not put a number in that was reflective of the amount for both. They had given the number for one. So for this year, for this next thing, until they can renegotiate that next year, the only thing we could do, because the agreement says it's 1,004 or whatever it was to split them in half and let them give half payment to the fall play and half to the spring musical. Then next year, before March, they could come to us and say, hey, we'd really like to up this number back to a number that we feel is appropriate. Then the MOU could go away because we can renegotiate.
So is this MOU retroactive back to the spring musical, or does basically the spring musical, makeup person make twice what they would normally make because it just gave the one number?
My understanding is it was going to be used to split the two, correct? For both of those.
So it goes
both the fall
retroact-
and the thing.
So we
yeah.
go retroactively back to the salaries for the spring musical. They haven't been paid yet.
I think
They were paid, but
This isn't changing any of the salaries.
were they paid the full amount, or were they paid half the amount?
They were paid half the amount. They were paid what's reflective in this MOU.
In the MO, okay.
Yep.
So wouldn't we then, shouldn't the MOU be retroactive, just to cover all of our bases? If we paid them the amount in this MOU, not the amount in the negotiated agreement, shouldn't it be retroactive? Just throwing that out. If that's what we did. Just maybe think about it.
And it does. The agreement dated August 25th through 25th, August 26th, 2025 through August 25th of 2029. So in essence, this does go
So
back.
it is retroactive.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So did-
And does cover any of those.
So we paid the
We paid,
fall pay accordingly as well then?
everybody was paid accordingly.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
absolutely. And any issues were worked out. So going back, we did in fact, one of the things that we saw a need for is a smaller vehicle. A smaller vehicle on campus to be able to do mail runs, home visits. Sometimes we'll take trips that only require maybe 2 or 3 students. So we wanted some type of smaller car or SUV to be able to use that's a little bit bigger than a 12-passenger van for three persons, or for our athletic director to be able to take to a meeting, or our principal to be able to take to a meeting, or one of us to be able to use. And we were able to locate a 2023 Ford Escape from McGuire's, and we would like to have your consideration at the June's meeting to purchase that vehicle. And that vehicle would be used for student purposes also, so it would require that extra inspection more readily than it would just be for adult use. The vehicle, I believe, has 20,000 miles on it,
It's less than that. I think it's
about
like
17,000 miles.
Are we going to have regulations attached to that, like in terms of the use? Like people not being able to stop at Giant on the way home from wherever they're going, you know what I mean? I know the restrictions that, like my husband has on a federal car. Will we have that if we've never had something like this before? I'm just asking.
So we can, absolutely. We can put some administrative regulations. That's something we have not thought of, and we certainly can do. Anybody has to be an authorized driver in order to be able to drive it. Not everybody is an authorized driver because they didn't go through the vetting process through our Director of Safety and Security. But yes, we can put together some administrative regulations pertaining to the use of
And who
of
can be
the
in it?
vehicle.
You know,
Correct.
because of insurance purposes,
Yep.
those kind of things, I
Yep.
think would be a good idea.
We have some motion to approve some solicitors. Daniel Altland, our current solicitor, and it's an incredible honor to be able to work with Dan. Dan does a great job for the district, and thank you to him as well. He is not increasing any of his rates. And we also use Saxon and Stump for special counsel. There are some situations that allow us to need the law firm of Saxon and Stump, including special education or student services. And their rate increased $10 for partner and associates and $25 for paralegals, and the paralegal rate increase. You do have a couple of contracts for your consideration as well at the June's board meeting. So one is motion to approve Currents of Change Counseling. Currents of Change Counseling has done an incredible job during a really difficult time for us when the county kind of pulled back a little bit on its services to be a SAP liaison and to providing those mental health screeners that are really essential for our student assistance program to operate effectively. So we appreciate them coming in and providing those screeners for us. From that, our team then contacts the parents and sets up the plans accordingly. So we're excited to continue that partnership. PSBA to provide member policy services at an annual rate of $2,000. And PSBA is changing their board docs platform to what's called Keystone Agenda. So probably by August meeting, we'll have a new agenda format instead of board docs. You'll see a login, which will be very similar, but it'll say Keystone Agenda. It should look similar, but like anything else, there will be a little nuances associated with it and some different features also with it. CM Region, the provision of our cyber reliability, student athletics, commercial property, including terrorism, equipment breakdown, commercial general liability, law enforcement crime, automobile liability and automobile physical damage, educators' access liability umbrella, and school leaders, educators' professional liability insurance from July 1 of 2026 to June 30th, 2027 for a total premium of $143,601. And like most things with insurance, it has increased of $10,559 from the previous subsequent year. Policies, we are looking to waive the first reading of Board Policy 214, and Board Policy 214 is board policy that is class rank, and we're looking, that is a new policy, so we're looking to waive that first read and go to directly to second read, as well as a motion to remove and retire Board Policy 212. Board Policy 212 was in it pretty dated, antiquated in one of the original board policies, so some of the language is counterproductive to Board Policy 214. With your consideration, we would like to cancel the July 7th policy and committee and caucus meetings, as well as the board and school regularly scheduled school board meetings for July, if that is so deemed appropriate at this time to do so, at the June's meeting, depending on any business that may come forth before that time. And we're looking to have a motion of some disposition items. And one thing some selected renovation has done has allowed us to continue that process of cleaning. And I think our schools and our school leaders continue to do a good job of, all right, we haven't touched it, we don't need it, why is it there? Let's look at, does it have a life? Can it be repurposed? If not, let's get rid of it. Storage space is of the premium, so we want to make sure we continue to not just keep stuff that's not in use. That stuff in use clutters, and that stuff in use becomes a hazard over time. Any questions on the agenda as we roll in? Pretty heavy agenda, but lots of stuff this time of year, which is fitting for this time of year. All right, great. Hearing none, I'm going to transition into some presentation items, and I'll start up first with the little construction update. You probably saw some of that construction update as you came in. I'm going to go through this relatively fast because a lot of these slides are redundant of each other. So this is one of those graphics from Notebook LM. Using artificial intelligence to create this graphic, which I thought was pretty interesting. We were able to take some of our construction plans and place it into this graphic. One of the things that's important is, why do we conduct these projects, and why is this construction going on? Well, we conducted 2 feasibility studies. These studies revealed that our buildings overall are in very solid condition and very good, but there were some immediate and short-term needs that needed to be addressed. And several of those needs allowed us to compress these projects into what was called a guaranteed energy savings. And the guaranteed energy savings laws allowed us to select a company through proper vetting, through a very competitive process, and allowed us to pick our current partner, ESCO company, called Quandel. How are we financing this? Well, we're financing this through a small bank-issued loan that was taken out in 2024 for the purposes of our contribution for Career and Technical Centers building expansion project, which is ongoing right now and doing quite well. And that is set to be turned over, I believe, at the start of the school year, pending any thing that could arise at that point. But our contribution was $1.38 million, and with this, keeping our debt run in place allowed us the chance to accomplish some other projects that are much needed. So throughout, we've seen signage increases, we've seen cargo boxes, we've seen construction trailers. We've also started to see, towards the end of school year, a second shift come in, begin to remove tiles, tie up any of the conduit or cables that are in there, tie those up, put those ceiling tiles back in. They did an incredible job of removing the floor and doing so without dust or buildup. They were able to do that. Now they're rocking and rolling. You see at the bottom of the FS system that's here at the high school, they hand cut that and began to level that so that when the water and that vapor barrier is going to exist there as well, and to begin to apply that waterproofing system by hand through a trowel as they're going piece by piece working through the building. Painting has started at the middle school and started at the high school here as well. The painting at the high school not only has an aesthetic appeal, but it also has a coverage appeal as it's put on that dry vent to create that kind of that rubberized surface. I'm not going to try to pretend to know the exact name of that paint. So some of the next steps that we've continued to do is we've had ongoing meetings every week. We meet in a construction trailer with our construction partners. The middle school has been closed, and our middle school administrative team has moved up here to the high school and been partners with our high school team here as well. Teachers work great. They help to remove any of the window areas. High school principal, assistant principal, Scott and Harold, our superintendent from Quandale, Pyramid Construction, was able to walk through and really identify what needed to be removed, what could be kept, and the staging area has become the gym. So all of those items are now removed, classified, and stored in pods on the gym in the middle school. One of the areas I want to talk about and ask for your consideration and more thought too, as I don't have a formal number or presentation, but one of the things that you'll see, and I apologize for missing this during the scope of our initial construction, was there are 7 partitions throughout the middle school that separate classrooms. If you were to open these partitions, they are very large rooms. Some have multiple, and the idea was that the open classroom concept that was once there. This open classroom concept where you could open and we could begin that process of moving students, team teaching, and moving before. That was very popular in a lot of designs in schools. Not very popular when there's other elements taking place, which comes sound. Sound travels, and sound can travel very easily through these. And when you look, that black rubber at the top is exactly what it is. It's rubber, and it doesn't go all the way up, so sound does, in fact, travel. And you get a loud teacher like, well, me, perhaps, I would definitely travel through each one of these rooms. So one of our consideration is while these partitions are being expanded back, the ceiling is going to be removed, that we remove these all together and have the construction company build walls. Walls would be insulated, they would be drywalled, and they would be using metal studs that would come through. There's about 7 of them. The price would be roughly around $40,000 additional to be able to do those. I'll pause to ask for your feedback on that. I do not have a formal quote yet at this point because it would have to go through a formal amendment, which requires posting and then requires some additional procedures that need to be put into place.
I have a question. Are we certain we're not going to encounter asbestos or anything that's going to cause
No.
additional abatement and
Nope.
cost?
Everything was tested.
We're not sure, or we are sure?
We are sure we are not.
It makes 1970s, the open classrooms. Sadly, I remember that, but it makes sense. I assume we'll keep the smart whiteboards and stuff, and I assume these won't be no value as far as resale or anything.
They will not be.
Is that cost just the cost of erecting the walls, or does that also include possibly putting electrical? Is there any codes that need to be considered that, you have to have an outlet every so many feet on a wall? Are
So
there
they
any
would-
things regarding
Yeah,
that?
really great questions. There wouldn't be any code issues associated with those. They would go through any of the permitting necessary. There would be no electric because there is no current electric in those. So
Even though there's not current electric, is that something our teachers might be appreciative of, to have electric on those walls?
Well, I think with the current scope of work and adding additional, I think we would be looking at, I think there are enough outlets around that to be able to do what we needed to do. Not having electrical outlets has not been something that was brought up. I think we'd be looking at a larger scope of work. Go ahead.
The other three walls have,
I was just chuckling because I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like every amendment price is always around $40,000. It's like reminiscent of my kids going to the orthodontist. Didn't matter how much work they were getting done, it was all going to be $5,500. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It must be like the going number, about 40,000. No. College is about that now. But yeah,
I mean, I
when it all comes down to it, it all comes down to that.
it'd be interesting. I mean, we could certainly procure quotes on this work separate, but you're not getting necessarily the economies of scale. Yeah.
It was more of a joke.
No, and it's true.
And I also just want to say, like, this I understand, because it's something that we see needs to be done, we're able to do. What I'm happy not to see is tons of change orders and tons of things that weren't seen, or we did not foresee this, or nobody realized this tree needed to be cut down, and now it's going to be $20,000. Like, I respect that how smoothly this whole project has gone. Dr. Fox, I think due to your leadership, as well as Quandell and some of the others involved, really it seems to me, unlike, I will say, the tech school, it seems to be going very, very smoothly, because I think we have really, quality engineers and the people who are working with us. So this kind of expense we're requesting because of something additional, not because of somebody not doing their job earlier. And I just wanted to say kudos to you and the team for the leadership and the smooth operation of everything.
Thank you, and I'll give credit to Scott and to JT Groppensberger. Having him on point as well makes a big difference. But while we would love to take credit for change orders, by this nature of this contract, we cannot have any change orders. So that helps too.
That's what they said. I still kept waiting for someone to come back to me with a change order.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's great.
So if this is something, there's still a lot of steps with an amendment, because this would be amendment number 2, smaller one, but there's still steps necessary to do this. I will then engage Quandell for further discussion to get a formal number. From that formal number, then there would be specifics to advertising. So if you see something being advertised, that is part of that requirement necessary to say there's an amendment for the GISA project. The amendment is not to exceed X $40,000. And if you see that advertised in the newspaper and publicly, it is for this purpose, to give us that runaway needed to be able to get this done in time.
And will it list specifically everything that they're going to do? So basically how I read it is they're going to remove and create the new permanent wall. Is that just they're going to put up the metal studs, the drywall,
Paint.
basically spackle it, but they will also paint it, or is that left to our,
They will paint.
they will do everything?
They will paint. So when we walk in that room, it's ready. Yep. And we'll make sure we get all of those details on the scope of work in the contract before it's presented. And if by chance they come back and say, actually, we moved ahead and we don't have any runaway, then we're just not able to do it right now. It's something we want to do, but if by the chance and the timing, it's already August and they've already moved past that point, it is what it is. We'll circle back at a later time, because they can't authorize to do it without your authorization, and because of the nature of the contract, requires specific steps. All right. Oops. So exterior work is continuing certainly at the high school here. You'll see the power washing occurred, sealing of areas. The painting has begun, not will begin, but has already started. Window replacement, you'll see. The windows on the second floor are crossed, have been replaced. They're starting with a lot of the trim work, and then the inside work is already being done as well. There's a crane plan that's in place, and they'll begin that process of removing the old chiller, as well as the storage tanks, and then sealing that wall that's occurring where those storage tanks once were. Here's a little, just an old photo, because as soon as I've taken these photos, it's been more modernized, so that's a good thing about every day. There's changes that are made. On the left-hand side, the paper is just part of their painting to make sure they didn't get it on there, but you'll see this is the side of the building towards the parking lot. You'll see the top FS piece was painted to match the colorization of my bad photography on the right-hand side. The middle school is on the left, high school on the right, yeah. Those orange tiles were once maroon. The gray tiles were once blue. And there are several of them still that are being not just painted, so they have to be washed and primed, and then they'll begin to be painted as they continue to work through. On the right-hand side is the high school. As they continue to work through, you'll see the windows on the top part. As they continue, that areas in between the windows will be trim pieces that will be put in once those windows are set. The top part still is going to have a gray band that will match a little bit of the bottom. It'll be a little smaller, but it should blend things together as well as that begins to work through. So I got to say to you guys, great job on your color selection, and we appreciate all of those efforts.
And we are putting the black windows on the first floor as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. All new windows at the high school, except for the front vestibule. When you walk in, that storefront will remain. The storefront will be painted. The trim will be painted black to match. The gym storefront will remain, but all the other windows from classrooms and offices, et cetera, will be replaced, and they will match those windows that are there.
I love how you took this picture from behind the fence. It's like you're in the prison yard.
I was in my office taking it from my window. It was way too hot to be outside.
I've been getting positive feedback about the colors so far from people that have said they've seen them. I don't know if anybody else has, but, I think it seems to be that it's being received well, so.
And it certainly came, a lot of that came from our student town hall, when our students said, hey, let's paint the building. And a lot of it came from several ideations and schemes that came from you as the board to address some of the student concerns. And it's not just paint, so it does serve a particular purpose to help protect that drive-at system that's there also. So now you're going to take a look inside of the middle school right now. This is the second floor. You'll see one of the classrooms. You'll see the ceilings are removed. The ceiling grid is removed. The ceiling is exposed. As they begin to put those ceiling tiles in that new grid in, and those ceiling tiles are not just acoustic ceiling tiles. That ceiling tile also has a rating to it. So it's a Templock. It's a thicker product, and in that thicker product, it helps to reduce noise, and it's supposed to also save on cooling and heating. So that will be added throughout the classrooms. This picture right here is just a picture of a new unit. So every classroom is going to get a new unit. So it's going to be, should be more easily for us to regulate with the controls. And it should also help some of the noise and the noise regulation that's happening there as well. So that unit's going to be slid in to the space
So
that's
will
there.
we actually be able to hear in the conference room at the middle school?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. No, it's teasing. Yes.
Notice how you started
That's
with
exciting.
one.
Yes, we should be good there. Some of the high school selected room renovations, so we went through, and prior we did reject all of the bids of that particular project. So this is project number 2. We did reject those bids. They came in significantly higher. But right now, our athletic director, he's moved or in the process of finalizing some of the boxes. He'll have that done tomorrow. He's moving into the high school main office. So that office will then be reconstructed. Our talented maintenance team is working and already started to work on one of the graphic arts rooms that's there. It will take some time. But the good news is, it's our team, so we can do it during school, we can do it on some times, and they're beginning that process of transitioning those spaces for our talented performing arts students. The elementary parking lot concept and design. The elementary parking lot concept and design here is temporarily, we're still working through permitting and design, but we will not get this to bid this summer because of just timing associated with it. And that's okay. I think the timing, when we look at it, we certainly have the opportunity to look at some bids maybe going out in February or March of 2027, which allows us then to begin that process for early bidding. And if we don't like those bids that came back, we may have some runaway to be able to quickly rebid. But some of the work that's happening right now by Pannoni is they have to go in and do some infiltration testing in and around the elementary school to look at how quickly those areas are going to drain, which is an important step as we begin to look at that kind of impervious area and some of the drainage collection basin. That drain that's currently at the elementary school right now, that's in the parking lot, is pulling from a very, very vast area of collection. And that drain is under capacity, is over capacity and pulling from a significant area. So not only is this an elementary parking lot project, this is preserving the parking lot from future issues that are going to arise because of the amount of area that's draining from. So the idea would be to take some of that capacity away from that drain to push it into other areas that can collectively capture that and dissipate that stormwater, so it's not forcing all of that water into that drain. All right. Any questions on any of those three projects at this time before I transition into water? All right. Hearing none, one of the things that we have to do annually is we utilize here in the district, we utilize well water. And all drinking water in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and public schools needs to be tested. We have a professional organization that comes in on a regular basis and tests our water. And districts have to test for lead in the drinking water as well as other contaminants. Well, we tested on August 25th of 2025, and we're happy to report that we had 0 detected lead in the drinking water. So that's really important because lead is a hazard and can be very very detrimental to drinking water. And there are new regulations set by the Pennsylvania Department of Education when it comes to lead in drinking water. So certainly that's some of the issues pertaining to it. So part of it is that we publicly disclose that we tested, and we're happy to report that we do not have any lead in the drinking water or any lead that leached into it from plumbing, from welds, or into any pipes over time. And we'll continue to test in accordance with the regulations. All right. I think we will transition now to House Bill 41, discussion on that and athletics. Mr. Markowitz.
We're just going to do a quick update, like wrapping up the year. We had a very good year overall, I thought, high school, junior high.
Can you use your microphone? Because we're streaming. Sorry, they won't hear you.
As we're working on the microphone, one of the things that when we talk about House Bill 41, there was some attention associated with that. He'll explain a little bit, and we can have a small and short discussion on what that is, just so we're aware of it or any next steps that we want to be prepared for in case anybody reaches out to us to say, hey, we'd like you to sign on to a resolution. And at this point, not necessarily sure if it particularly has any significance, if that's the right words to use. So go ahead, as I was filling some time.
All right, so first slide is just wrapping up the year. Again, very productive year for us, I think, overall. 7 league championships, 5 PICO championships, a district championship, a state championship. We had a district champion in girls wrestling, several district and state qualifiers for track, including numerous school records. One highlight with that was Claire Wexler took 4th in the PIAA state championships in the 300-meter hurdles. We want more. That's one thing that, I speak with my coaches a little bit. We want to continue this. We don't want to settle. It's a good year, but we want a better year next year and to continue this momentum. For junior high, boys and girls soccer teams set school records for wins. Overall, with all of our junior high sports, we had a 75% winning percentage. Very successful year 1 of football. We're seeing a lot of interest in junior high programs across the board now. Junior high programs are huge. There are feeder programs. In my opinion, feeder programs are the biggest factor in athletic success in high school. I always say, don't rebuild, reload every year. We don't want to rebuild. We want to just keep reloading every single year. So that's a big part of your feeder programs, and I thought we did a tremendous job this year and years past, but we want to continue to get better. So now with the House Bill 41, first of all, there's a big misconception out there. A lot of people think the House Bill 41, by signing the petition that was going around, basically you're saying that, yes, we are going to separate private and public schools from competing in the postseason. But really what that House bill was and what that petition was is it puts the decision in the PIAA's hands whether they want to separate or not separate. Mark Byers came to our District 3 meeting and basically said there's 3 different things that we can do here. Either they are going to separate private and public in the postseason for every sport, they are going to separate private and public for some sports, or they're going to keep private and public together for postseason competition. Now, if they do decide to separate, we still can play private schools in the regular season. There's no sort of, we can absolutely do that, and we plan to do that. But with this House Bill 41, they're going to put the decision in the PIAA's hands. There was a rally today in Harrisburg at 1 o'clock. I don't know what happened from that, but I do know that was today. And there's a lot of schools that believe that we need to separate. So that's kind of where we are right now. Nothing has been decided. I know Leanne was at the meeting with me with Mark Byers, so if anything you want to add to that, but that's kind of where we are right now.
No, I think you said it correctly. I mean, I think the big misconception is that the House bill, when it does pass into law, or if it does pass into law, was that it was going to automatically separate the two of them, and it's not. It's just giving the PIAA the authority to do it, which they do not have now, because state law says, state school code says they have to be together. So I think it's going to be an interesting discussion should the bill pass. And I think just as a small school, something we have to think about is that when you carve out all private schools from the PIAA classification system, you will have less classifications perhaps in certain sports, and larger schools will now drop down into your classification, and you will be playing them. So in the regular season and in the postseason. So for instance, in single A, AA, and AAA field hockey, there's a lot of private schools, a lot of small Christian schools that will now no longer be there for the postseason. So that will change the classification, because classifications is what dictates how you bracket in the postseason. So now your AA schools will drop down into single A, or they'll get rid of single A altogether, and it'll just be AA and AAA. So it'll have some ramifications for some schools of varying sizes, but I think the small schools in particular, it may have some not necessarily pleasant outcomes, But again, that's going to remain to be seen whether the PIAA even decides to do it. And if they do, the House bill really delineates some very specific things that they need to do before they even can move forward with the separation, in terms of public input and meetings and all this other stuff. They have to have stakeholders being able to jump in. So, anything else does that,
I think that covers it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's kind of what, a lot of people, like Leanne said, it's a great point. Like, they're going to reclassify everything. So, a lot of people are like, yeah, separate them. Let's get the publics, yes, in some cases, yeah, that would make things a lot easier, but the other side is, yeah, you're going to get reclassified, and we're going to have bigger schools that we're going to play in the regular season and the postseason. So, yeah, I got nothing else more to add there.
All right, certainly more to come on that as we continue to watch and see during this, as the House and Senate becomes back into session with their next session as they work to get that budget done. And with those budgets that get completed, certainly sometimes it becomes omnibus bills that several pieces of legislation get attached to the ending of that state budget as well.
And this is sitting in the Senate committee, so this hasn't gone to the Senate floor for a vote yet. It's gone through the House, but it's still back down in committee for the Senate, so I don't even know when it's going to get voted on, through the Senate even, so.
All right, and our last item for this evening is just an update on our 5-year operational maintenance plan. And we also included some of our fleet management as well. So I took a stab, certainly, of using and placing this 5-year maintenance plan and updating it with the help of Mr. Howe. We were able to take a look at some of these through our discussions and kind of recycling this document and updating it accordingly. And then placing this information and using Notebook LM through Google to place this document in. And it was able to give me some really unique graphics that I'll walk through. But really, the power is in that static document that's in front of you here as well. Kind of gives us a look as we continue. While we're doing a lot in our GISA project, and you'll see very little in the 26-27 school year planning-wise, but then it gears up again as we continue to look and just kind of plan accordingly. This does not take into account certain things that just break, that we didn't foresee. This is trying to take a look at the aging of some systems, some needs that we may have identified through the feasibility study, but there are some things that we're going to miss, and there are some things that just need to be done. So we'll kind of walk through this a little bit together. You'll see the next is just understanding the scale of impending investments. When we look at it, some things we continue to plan for is we're still a ways out, but we want to continue to put on our horizon, of course, is the turf replacement, track resurfacing. When I say resurfacing, you're like, wow, that's a lot of money to resurface the track. That is taking that track off, taking the blacktop down, remilling it all, putting in all new asphalt and all new rubberized surface. You can only resurface a track so many times before the blacktop underneath or the asphalt begins to deteriorate. So the way to really know that a little bit is to do some of those core samples within a track to determine it. We may be okay, and that's where we're hopeful to have one more surface on the track, which will buy probably 10 plus years to try to time these two projects out, perhaps, or to get another whole cycle of the track out there. So that's something that we'll work with the different track providers that we have, and an independent authorized track specialist who will come in and be able to take a look at that for us and give us some different solid best advice. Some of our roofing warranty, as we look at this, is coming to fruition. There's significant sections of roofing. Again, we have put in for the middle school, while it's out of coverage in the 29 school year, when we say out of coverage, it's out of warranty. Some areas are being replaced and repaired, but it's going to come out of warranty. Some of that technology is a little older, especially at the middle school. We did put in for a facilities grant to have that repaired. We'll see where that facilities grant lies, and we're hopeful because, again, we have not been successful in one of those facilities grants. So it would be great because it's 75 cents on the dollar. That would make sense to be able to continue and move forward with one of those, some of those projects, and take some of that responsibility and easement off of this long-term plan. It's important to know that there is no longer what was once called Plan Con. Now, if a new building happens or or major renovation has to happen, you still need to follow Plan Con. And the Plan Con, which is plan construction, the documents associated with Plan Con, but there is no Plan Con reimbursement available anymore. There hasn't been for several years. So what does that mean? Well, it means the state isn't really significantly single-handedly helping to cover some of the cost of major building improvements and construction. That falls under debt service payments, looking at responsible use and making sure that districts continue with facility use plans. Some of the structural integrity and mechanical efficiencies we'll continue to look at, just some repaving. You'll see here just some aesthetics. You'll see in the lobby of the high school bubbles. Well, those bubbles are either moisture or air, probably moisture, that has penetrated through with the lack of a vapor barrier when that epoxy terrazzo was first put on the floor. So there's some things we want to try. But specifically, if it can't be done, it may need a certified person or company to come in. We're looking at roughly 18, or it could be even higher than that. These are pretty low conservative numbers. Geothermal continues to be aging, so it's investigation of the geothermal loop to determine what the aging of some of that piping and piping systems are. Backing up electrical boilers. And just some concrete walkways as concrete walkways begin to be old, some of that replacement and work associated with that. And some HVAC replacement at the district office. We have an old variable, we have a variable refrigeration flow system, and modernizing that system and putting those and more ability to be able to service those and having that tie into more of the control system. And then an area I didn't put on here that needs to be done is we're doing controls at the middle school, and a long-term plan would be able to have one system control everything and being able not to have two systems. So that's a long-term project. And I'm going to pause to see if Mr. Howell has anything he wants to add to anything I've stated at this point yet.
The control part we are definitely going to look at, just to see how smooth this new control system works.
Can I ask a couple questions? What is the investigating loop water piping? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, actually, Morrison's run today. We have a possible leak down at the
It's on. Yep.
good.
Nope. Nope.
Now it's on.
Here we got one. They were looking at the geothermals, just because of the aging of the pipes underneath and the wells that are down at the elementary school. There was 28 wells, I think we counted. It's just to see how much longer they'll last, because they were put in for a long time ago.
And we're waiting, we're going to do that in 28, 29? Is that the plan?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And I guess the other question I had was the terrazzo flooring. Is that an aesthetic? That's more of an aesthetic thing if we choose to do it?
It is, but we're starting to see, at least in my opinion, maybe because they're noticeable based on light, is we need to watch it. It seems like they're becoming more prominent. And if these bubbles become more prominent and larger, they could become significantly a hazard. And if that becomes the case, then it will become a sooner rather than later. Less becomes about the aesthetic piece and more about that's something that needs to be done sooner rather than later. But right now it's aesthetic.
And not to be ghetto, but it's terrazzo is like ridiculously expensive. And so is there a way to, at some point, to remove the places where it's bubbling and replace it with like black ceramic tile and somehow make it look, cosmetically, creatively abstract without having to like fill in terrazzo over a period of time?
Yes, 100%. And there's different variations of terrazzo. That terrazzo is a little different than the terrazzo that's at the middle school as well. The terrazzo at the middle school is kind of your traditional terrazzo that'll last longer than your building will. This is more of an epoxy terrazzo. But yes, could it be fixed? And could it be fixed relatively inexpensive? And those answers are no. then what is a good product that's durable, that's non-slippery, cleans well, and lasts? That would be our recommendation to replace rather than
I
repair.
remember when we put, unfortunately, I can remember when we put that Trazo floor down in like 2000. And I just feel like it has been an expensive proposition from the moment we put it down and continues to be so. So, I mean, if there's a creative way that we can fill in, cut out and fill in, you know, make it look good without having to redo terrazzo, I mean, we would explore that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Just some additional things we want to continue to look at is our elementary classrooms have carpet, and those carpets are rolled carpet, original. So they are continuing to have a cycle where we'll put carpet tiles in. Carpet tiles are nice because they can be, if one tile gets yucky, it can be replaced relatively easily without having to replace, like here, the entire piece without trying to seam it together.
I have a question. So did you purposefully?
I think that was just a mistake.
So it should be 29, 30?
Yes.
That you're doing them consecutively?
Yes, that was an error. And if we can continue, you know, it's something that we would look at the pricing of that. Can we get economies of scale? What does that look like? What rooms are, or this is just an estimate of what we have left. We're gonna go and do a physical review of each. Some carpet may be in better shape and can be delayed longer, and some may not be. And each dimension of the room is a little bit different, so that could adjust cost accordingly. Number 2 here is just some spatial configuration. Those are the walls that we talked about. So if we get that done, that's going to take that off of our maintenance plan, if we're able to do that within the scope of this amendment number 2. Some performance spaces, possibly, you know, looking at in the future if there's a need. Right now, our seats are in really great shape. And that's, a lot of that is maintenance in our custodial team. Making sure when one of those armrests come off that they put it back on there. They're original, they're incredible. You don't see quality seats like that anymore. We were just talking about that today. But if they start to falter and fail, it's difficult to get replacements. So we would be looking at seats and curtains. Those curtains are on borrowed time. Those curtains have been certainly treated, because they have to be treated by a particular company for fire retardant, making them that way. And Mrs. Howell herself sewed several of those curtains to preserve them. And you know, we want to continue just to make sure that the attention gets focused on some of these spaces, to make sure that, okay, is there anything we can do to update or modernize this space while still keeping that space useful and making sure that, you know, it still keeps at a budgetary, you know, area as well. So just keeping that in our framework. And, you know, ongoing, as we start to look at some of these broken desks and failed chairs, there will be a point where we'll want to do a furniture replacement as well, too, to make desks and chairs so they're a separate unit than some of these desk and chair combos, that you can reconfigure classrooms differently for different learning styles, having more of that collaborative learning and being able to pull together and then pull apart when you need those for individual work also. What's that?
Not like the open classroom, that we have the glass wall.
No, not at all. Not at all. Because a desk is a desk, but if it can be shaped a little different, you can make them into a table and then make them into a desk, but you still have surface area. I like to think is that just being a little bit more flexible, like being able to play 3 different positions. Just a couple of things we want to kind of think about over the course of the next couple of years. We'll need some direction on. You've heard us talking about this. Is what are we going to do about the middle school caboose? it's certainly it's damaged. There are areas where water has gotten into it. It's damaged above. It was brought in, and some of the pictures out in the hallway, it was brought in for a class purpose. It was redesigned for a class purpose. We want to honor that, and I think there's still a way to be able to honor the history associated with that while possibly getting that out, and then being able to reuse that space differently. Or we repair it. And some of the repair cost estimates are very high. It could be a small classroom, and I say classroom learning center. You wouldn't be able to take 20-plus people into it. You'd be able to take 5 people into it or 6 people, and it could be what it was designed for, which was a small museum and living history to the importance of the automobile and the railroad industry. Sorry. So it has potential.
Rumor has it there's like a Norfolk Southern historical. Rumor has it there's like a Norfolk Southern historical preservation society of some kind that may be willing to assist with that. I heard it through the grapevine. People mentioned it to me. I don't have the details, but maybe we can find them, and we don't incur the expense to make it what it once was and should be again, realistically.
Yeah, any grants such as that, we'd be willing to explore and put the sweat equity in. I know when Mrs. Matosh was here, she did write one, and I believe it was from Norfolk Southern, a community-based grant, not necessarily from the historical or preservation. So I will continue to look and see if there's anybody, and if anybody is listening who works for Norfolk Southern, has a relative of Norfolk Southern, or a connection there, please send any information to jfox@susquenita.org, and we'll take a look at that. We did reach out to an organization in Lancaster. We did not hear back from that. Or if there's an organization that maybe preserves these, but wants to preserve it in their own museum, we would rather see that get used. And all we would ask for is that they safely remove it by a crane company who's insured, obviously, and one that has the proper paperwork to be able to move this. So that's one of our forks in the road. And the second is the tennis courts. Tennis courts get used. A little bit of some pickleball gets played. We saw some athletes playing pickleball the last couple of days, some tennis. One of it could, there's multiple options. There's option A, there's option B, there's option C, there's option D, there's option E. So just any options are on the table when it comes to the tennis courts, but you're starting to see some gaps being in the macadam, needs to be resurfaced, repaired, and then resurfaced accordingly. So the question is, do we resurface it and use it as that, or do we cover it with some type of synthetic turf and allow that to be used in multi-purpose fashion as another practice surface, gym class surface? It's close enough to our middle school and high school that they can use it for phys ed classes and use it also for recess. Or do we look at option C, which is we just use that area for something totally different? We put a gigantic building on there and use it for something else. I'm open to any of those options, but we're going to have to put that on our horizon to make a decision because that's coming.
There also, we need to consider, there are geothermal wells underneath. Whoever decided to put tennis courts over geothermal wells, I don't know, but that's a very real concern. It definitely has to be considered because we've had well leaks beneath the tennis courts in the past, and then to dig that up and replace it, whatever, if there's a building on top of it or whatever, that's a concern. Unless we just, I mean, I hate to say this, but unless we just let it erode to the point that we have to do something or maintain it as best we can in its current state.
With the, and I don't know if it's just going to be a short trend or not, but with the surge of the pickleball kind of trend, if we were to resurface them, is there a way that we could pull some income in for people to utilize those things for, I'm just wondering, like, is there a way to recoup something for whatever we do there? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the local pickleball community, to be honest with you. I know that, I think in New Bloomfield, there might have put some pickleball courts
Yeah.
in a park there. I see they're converting malls or mall space into pickleball courts because it's available and indoors and climate controlled.
There's a big Ace pickleball court down
Trinity does?
right near
Oh, we do?
Okay.
It has it.
So there's definitely some spaces. You know, I think the more that we can make a space multi-purpose, yes, open classroom, but multi-purpose to be able to use for a multitude of different things and not defining what it is, I think is always good for us.
I think my only concern about, and this is just kind of since we're
Yeah.
having caucus, about the turf conversion,
Mm-hmm.
is that I don't feel like it's large enough for it to be used for anything outside of maybe just some extra space for
Yeah, definitely not a
practice.
game, not a
If-
full
Right, I
practice.
was thinking if we were gonna spend any money like that to or to turf something, I would rather see it to be on a true multi-purpose field, whatever, even the softball, whatever,
Yep.
wherever we were, if that's what we're gonna spend money on.
Okay.
I just don't know that I would wanna do it on the tennis courts that aren't gonna be useful for a total
Yeah.
multi-purpose thing, for that kind of money.
It's a good point.
Are you saying we cannot build a building on it because of the geothermal underneath?
Yeah, I think there would just need to be some geothermal testing, you know, when we look at those wells. They have built buildings over top of geothermal wells before. We would just want to make sure that,
I think we should put a pool in, because then you could use the geothermal to heat it. Just say it.
I am wondering, personally, I would hate to see a building there because of the views and everything, but
You sell
I am
memberships to
wondering
it.
also if we just think out of the box, and I don't know, but can we put batting cages in that area? Can we put something up for the golfers, you know, to be hitting golf balls, you know, or I don't know, but there, you know, something else. I mean, there are other options perhaps where other sports might be able to utilize that space to kick, you know, whatever. So, thoughts?
My thoughts would be to make that a state-of-the-art weight room. And then the space in the weight room now is something the athletic director could move into that existing space. I've never seen the weight room, but I think you kill two birds with one stone, and the weight room would benefit every sport, not just a singular sport.
And I was joking, sort of joking about the pool thing, but to your point, you could do the same thing with the weight room if you did it. You could sell memberships to that. Like people could then, and it wouldn't be attached to the school, so you wouldn't have the security thing about people coming into the school building. It would be a separate building, and people in the community could purchase memberships to it. That's what they did down in Central York.
Weight
They
room is-
put in a huge weight room and pool, and then they allowed the community to
I
purchase
think I
memberships to it.
misspoke. Rather than a weight room, called a fitness.
Yeah, fitness thing, whatever,
room.
yes. Yeah. But what it provided was that state-of-the-art stuff for their athletes, but then summer times and when it wasn't in that much use, or certain times of the day, the public could purchase memberships to go in and use it.
Yeah, and if the one whole side was just pure glass looking over 322, it would not be, I was envisioning that it would look horrendous, but something like that could add to the campus, for sure.
so with that, is there any step you want me to take? And I want to take baby steps because that's a lot.
Well,
It was just a pipe dream. I just wanted to
I mean,
volunteer.
a
what
pipe
that-
dream could
what that
mean
space
we
could be used for. It could be used for a lot of other things. But I think the weight room is from 1960.
Yeah, it's small. It has some incredibly modern weights thanks to a donation, but it's crammed. And having that ability to have some small little area where you can do some plyometric drills, have a cardio area, being able to go over and do some free weights, definitely would enhance performance, not just for student athletes, the community, but also non-student athletes for strength and conditioning class that could happen as an elective, throughout.
I actually think our current weight room's only about 10 years old, because that,
We moved in about 2011,
so it's,
and replenished. A lot of the weights were 12 or 13.
right, so it's not as old as we think, but it was just recently, what was that before? Loading, storage, central receiving.
Yeah, I think space is the issue with your existing weight room.
I guess my question is, you just went over the grocery list of things that are gonna have to be done in the next 5 years. And so where are we at with our current debt service? When is that done? So we're gonna be still paying on that beyond what this whole 5-year plan is. I guess my question is, why do you feel the tennis courts are imminent as compared to what's in the stuff that's on here, Like, I'm just thinking in terms of the track resurfacing down the road or any of this stuff, I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I just look at future condition, and I just see certain separation of pavement that's occurring there. And certainly, I look at that and say, okay, is it going to be able to be used, and how many years does it have left to be able to be used?
I get that, but right now, I don't know how much it's actually being used by students in the school for school-related purposes right now, as compared to some of this other stuff. Like, where will we get the money to do this stuff that's on the 5-year plan if we're already going to be in the middle of or still in the middle of our debt service? I know we have some money left on that, but not a ton. I'm just wondering.
This is just a wish list. This certainly is not how we're going to pay for it list. But
No, I know,
you
but
make
I'm
a
just
great
saying,
point.
but
Seriously.
some of it we're gonna have to do.
yeah.
And where, I guess what I'm wondering is, do we tie up whatever amount of money on the tennis courts, which, while they may turn out to be an eyesore, they're not being used as imminently as some of the other stuff, and I guess even the caboose, as much as it's, I know we keep kicking the can down. Is that what putting the cart before the horse? But I guess that's. We prioritize, I think is gonna be needed to be done.
So I actually have a couple questions. So for the roof treatments, is that the 700 and the 1.6 roughly million? Is that because you have it listed across 2 years? Are those amounts split across those 2 years, or is that amount how much you anticipate it would cost each of those years? So for like the high school, you have it listed on 28, 29, 29, 30, or are you thinking that it would just be that amount and it could be either of those years?
Yeah, that's the totality of that full amount. It could be either of those 2 years. It could be, the good news is any of those could be split. It will require
Okay.
some sampling of that roof to see which areas are in most need. So yes, that is the total to get all of these areas treated at this time right now. It certainly will more than likely go up.
Okay.
Can I follow up on the roof before you move forward? And then
Yes.
I'll give you the floor again.
Yes.
My question on the roof was, don't we currently budget a considerable amount of money every year toward treating the roofs? And would this be in addition to, don't we budget like $200,000 or something a year or something toward reconditioning a section of the roofs every year? There was kind of a plan. Would this eliminate that, or how does this fit into that?
So we have not, in the last 5 years, have not budgeted $200,000 per year. We were fortunate to be able to get several, and using ESSER's funds prior to get several of the larger areas done. So there was not a need at that particular point to do the $200,000 kind of former maintenance plan per year to look at attacking each piece systematically. We've taken it in larger chunks, including this most recent chunk that was some areas here at the high school and some areas at the middle school at which we were able to use some of the funds associated with that you authorized to use of some of our debt service funds, which I believe was like 1.2 million to complete some of that work that needed to be done. So there's some work overall that we can go back to those per year and put them in, but really at that point, we do have, it's half a dozen of one, 50 of another of how we want to approach it. I think to go back, and I may have, are you laughing at my analogy? Yeah, probably not. But going back to your question on how we're going to afford these things, and I think that's why we bring it certainly to your attention. And there are needs moving forward that are just not budgetary needs. These needs are going to either need to be addressed, with a systematic plan of, and I'll just say for what it is, and I know it's not popular, but a systematic plan of increasing taxes, or a systematic plan of looking at our debt service and pushing that debt service further out. And what can we get with that debt service when the rates are good, and what does that look like in terms of our debt rate to continue to keep that debt run rate moving forward?
Marcy only got to ask her one question.
Oh, go ahead.
So my last one is not really a question. I did, based on the years that you put in, kind of look at like how much totality you are looking at, as far as what you're proposing it would cost. So next year it's only like 26,000, 27, 28, you're looking at roughly 436,000 rough on the high end. Then in years 28, 29, 29, 30, and 2030, 2031, you're looking at anywhere from 1.5 to 1.7 million. And that is between 28 and 29. I split basically the cost of the roof treatments between both of those years. Then going into 2031 and beyond, other than until you hit the turf, you're back down into 60, 75,000. So I think my only thought process there would be, it sounds like you guys have put a lot of great effort into looking at this. It would then be plotting it again to look at, could we spread the cost a little bit more equally across some of those years, that maybe if there's something that, hey, could I push it a year or two later, or maybe something needs to get pushed up a little sooner to kind of maybe spread some of that cost out, to look at some of that.
Yeah, that's great points. Absolutely, and I appreciate you doing that work on that, in terms of looking at that numbers in those particular areas. We want to try to keep what we can. These are certainly some things that we may be able to not do, and there's some things that are going to come forward that we know we have to do because they just surfaced and we weren't anticipating those needs and breakages.
So let me throw this out. I think this is a big deal. We have several million, I'll leave it at several $1 million in our fund balance. And we, every year we vote and we assign it to PSERS or whatever. Assuming moving forward, we have pretty much a balanced budget moving forward. Could we start now to come up with assigning a certain amount every year to capital reserve projects specifically? Like starting now, knowing that in this year we need to replace our turf field, that every year we will take X amount of money out of our fund balance and put it into our capital reserves and denote it turf field replacement. And every year we take a certain amount of money, whatever it's going to take for the track resurface, if we have it in our fund balance, and put it in our capital reserves for track resurfacing. And we do the same thing for roof replacement, so that we just don't have, I've shared this many times, I'm very uncomfortable with this large amount of money that we have committed to PSERS, which you know how I feel about that commitment. These are real issues that we could commit certain amount of money out of our fund balance to capital reserve projects, knowing that in 10 years, we're going to need to have $1 million here, and that's where it's going to come from, assuming our fund balance has not been going down, and our fund balance has historically continued to go up. I think we should do that, and I think we should do it soon. I think we should do it now, that we actually literally have projects in capital reserve that we are demoting money to and we're committing the money to, and every year we evaluate if we have money left in our fund balance that we could put over to capital reserves to pay for these projects. Because we have these projects, we have the money in capital reserves to pay for them, and we're sitting on the capital reserves, reserving it for PSERS, and reserving it for the fact that we project and sometimes have a debt. But then instead of raising taxes, I think as you kind of just suggested and hated to suggest, raising taxes to resurface the field, I would rather have to raise taxes because we have a deficit we can't cover than be raising taxes and sitting on $19 million in reserves. So I feel pretty strongly that we could take this plan and solidify it financially very clearly. I'd like to hear what anyone else thinks about that. Anyone? What thoughts? Anybody?
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
my thoughts are, I hate the idea of raising taxes, period. I mean, that's just my gut reaction when I hear that. I mean, I understand, I'm not saying that things are.
We all agree.
Not for the, I mean, I'm just saying, because I know how I feel about it, and I feel I'm like paying a lot enough already. I think this is just my gut reaction to raising taxes. I'm going, ugh. So, sorry, you asked for opinions. That's mine.
I'm not suggesting we raise taxes, hopefully ever, or hopefully we're not going to have to. But in the past, we've raised taxes and we've had money in a fund balance, and you can't use a fund balance to balance a budget because you can't pay for things like salary increases and electrical costs and the increase in busing and transportation. You can't pay for those things because of a fund balance. The fund balance will run out. But you can use that fund balance to pay for things like surfacing a turf, which happens every 10 years or something. So I'm suggesting we denote parts of that fund balance to those types of things. And then if we ever had to raise taxes, it would only be because our current amount of income is not sufficient enough to run the district, which hopefully won't happen. But any thoughts?
I don't disagree. However, I think I'd like to see, before we rededicate the fund balance, see what happens after this fiscal year, because I feel like this was the first year that the budget was built with narrower leeway. I don't know how to say it, Jason, maybe you have a different way of saying it, and just sort of see where we come in, and are we needing to tap into that general fund to be able to balance whatever we were short of. Because I think the last couple of years, to your point, we've kind of built a budget that had a deficit in it, and then when it came to the end of the year, we might have been $80,000 one way or another, but we didn't really alter our fund balance.
Well,
And
let me ask this to your point. If they determine to do the turf field, we need to take $100,000 out of our fund balance and devote it for every $100,000 for the next however many years until we have have the money. Why? We know we have that money now. Every year when we review that money, we can look and say, are we able to move that money over to capital reserves? And we could either say yes or no based on what you're talking about. I don't know why we would wait. I get very uncomfortable, and if I'm speaking too passionately, I don't mean to, but I feel very uncomfortable that we're sitting on this large fund balance and we're talking about these needs, but In my home, when we have needs and we have money, we set those needs aside. We're going to get a car here this year, so we're going to do this. You know, you're driving a car without air conditioning because you're saving up. I don't know why we're not doing that as a district when we know what our needs are. Instead, we're sitting on this large fund balance, which is untouchable because it's designated for PSERS.
Yeah,
I
I
just don't
think-
understand it.
Wait,
I do agree with you. I think.
really quick, it is,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is touchable. You're sitting on that much money because of your prudence. You're sitting on that much money because of your fiscal responsibility. That money can be transferred at any time to capital reserve with action by you, the board. It can be. It can be moved from a PSERS account to a capital reserve. It can be moved from cyber charter to
Let me
any of
ask
those
this question.
categories.
Let me ask this question
to
then.
capital reserve.
So instead of transferring it to capital reserve, and maybe that's not the right thing, because maybe once it's in capital reserves, we can't touch it. So is that correct? All right, so then let's leave it in the fund balance and keep it where it is. Instead of saying it's denoted for PSERS, let's denote it toward a possible turf field, or toward this project, or toward that
Then
project.
it becomes capital,
Why?
because you're
it's
talking
a
about a
capital
capital
improvement.
project.
But, so we can't save, you can't put money up, you can't save money for future construction within fund balance. Okay. However, can we have a paper similar to this one that we have and that we know about it that says this money's designated for PSERS? And on our paper, without moving it into a capital fund, say, we know it's designated for PSERS. However, we know every year we're able to put this much into this account with the possibility that in 5 years, we're going to move this much to a turf field.
So I understand I understand exactly what you're saying. You have money that's in the district has money that's in fund balance. Those funds can be moved into different categories, but once it's moved and designated into that capital category for capital improvements, could be these roofs, could certainly be future building renovations, could be stadium. All of those things are capital projects. It stays there. Now, you can keep them designated in its categories right now. And with a board action, you can say this year we would like to go ahead and move 200,000 to capital. Let's say we had a good financial year. We came in and we're 200,000 to the plus. You, through board action, can say, we as a board would like to take that 200,000 and move it to capital. Absolutely, you can.
Can we put that in writing? For ourselves only, internally? Can we know, like, how are we going to pay for all this? Can we know that we're going to be able to pay for this because we have money in our fund balance that's going to allow us to pay for this? Because we don't look there and we don't take money out of there. But these are the types of big projects that we can use a fund balance for. And I don't think we're in danger of our fund balance being anywhere close to zero. I'm just concerned that we're not thinking about that.
Yeah, it feels a little disingenuous to say we're going to have something in a fund balance carved out for PSERS, but
It is.
really, we're going to be using it for this.
Well, it's exactly what it is right now, totally disingenuous.
Well, I don't think that it is, in the sense that if we built a $1.5 million deficit budget this year, and it turned out that we had to go into that balance, that fund balance, to pay the rest of the year out, then we would pull out of PSERS for the increase that we did for the CBA, for the teachers, that required us to pay more to PSERS. We would be able to pull
We
from there.
wouldn't, because we still have over $3 million uncommitted in our fund balance. We would use that money
Why?
because it's uncommitted.
But why wouldn't we use the stuff that's committed to the
I
thing
don't
that
know,
we?
that's just not what we do.
But I think we could. We
'Cause
could
it's
also
committed.
take some out of the cyber charter to pay for some of the cyber charter stuff that required us to have a $1.5 million.
And we
That,
have
to me,
what,
would be the place
$18 million
where we
in
should
fund
take it.
reserve?
My point is, I think that's where that money that is earmarked for those things, if we were to have to go into the general fund to make up the deficit that we built a budget of, that's where we would pull from. We'd pull from the things that we can use that fund money towards, rather than just taking out of the general fund.
I just want to make one more comment and I'll let it drop.
Yeah.
I feel it's disingenuous to have $18 million in a fund balance thinking we're going to need that to balance every year's budget. And I think that's disingenuous. I would rather see us, if these projects need to be done, I would rather us not sit on such a fund balance and know that when we need to do these projects, that we can use the money out of
Yeah,
our fund
what
balance to
I'm
do
saying
it.
is I think
I've been
it's-
on this board for 12 years. I can't once remember us pulling any money out of the fund balance to pay for anything.
And all I'm saying,
That's
what I
the
think is
problem. I have a problem with
disingenuous is
that.
saying that if we have these things earmarked for these things, we can't just make a list on the side that's just for us, that we really know what this, I think you know what I mean, right? But
I would like the fund balance to be on the horizon somewhere.
yeah, and then I think we do what Dr. Fox says, and we start to say, we'll move it to capital, knowing that we can't move it out of that. Like, that is what we're marking it for, and it's not gonna be a safety net.
We didn't want to move it to capital, because once it's there, you can't remove it.
I would suggest, when we look at our overall audit results, if there are potentially, or is potentially, now, again, for whatever way, shape, and form, if we come in favorably, that is the time to move that money, in my opinion, to capital. You can nibble and move funds if you so desire. I would just be hesitant to move large chunks and groups, only because expenses continue to rise. Unexpected expenses continue to rise. Revenue is not rising. That is true.
That's not true. Our revenue has gone up every year since I've been on this board.
The revenue, okay,
I mean, what do you think, what do you mean by revenue? The
we
amount of money that comes in?
yes.
So,
The
I
amount of
mean,
money that comes in, you're correct and accurate. That has increased.
it may not have increased at the same rate as our expenses.
That's
But it
correct.
has
Thank you.
increased. Okay, fair.
Yes,
But
yes.
yeah, to say that the revenue doesn't increase,
yeah.
it has, right? I mean, I started on this board and our budget was $32 million. Now it's dang near 40. So we
Yes.
know that more money has come in. But I understand, you're right, and our expenses are outpacing it. That's why we build a deficit budget, except that's why I sort of wanted to see with the first round of the contract, the teacher's contract, sort of see where we were at and see where those numbers come in. And I think I was more speaking to both you and Pat when you had said you don't want to raise taxes. I would agree with that. At a general rule, I don't want to do that either, not when we're sitting on a large fund balance. But if it turns out that we're tapping into our fund balance by $2 million just to be able to meet the expenses of this year, and we know that the next year is going to have another $1 million of the teacher's contract, then I get a little, you know what I mean? So that's why I don't want to go with the carte blanche, I'm not ever going to raise the tax, and we're going to move all this money, and we have this money. So I think it'll be interesting to see. Now, if it comes in, like Dr. Fox says, we're a little favorable or whatever, then I go, okay. Now, you know, we are getting enough revenue increase, it seems, to be offset what we've done for the teacher contract and things like that. So I think we kind of need to see what Jason provides to us next week.
Yeah, and certainly we try to prepare our budgets with as much level funding from the state. That's great if it increases, not great if it decreases. So again, we are preparing our prediction budget, because that's really what a budget is, our prediction budget far in advance from when the state, which in all intents and purposes is about a little over 50% of our revenue.
Did we ever get final state numbers? Have they come out yet? Or is that going to have to come out after they pass
After they pass the budget.
Okay.
Yep.
So we don't know that for the budget that we are passing now or
Correct.
in June? Okay.
So I have actually comment/question to what Leanne said regarding that if we have a deficit and we could just pull from Peasers or wherever that was from, Mr. Brous, do we have to, on the balance sheet, be able to show, in order to do that, that the deficit was actually caused by that particular line item? So I think looking back historically, could we say that if we were in a deficit, that it has been caused by Peasers, or have we typically been budgeted, or do we budget properly for Peasers and salaries and benefits or whatever our categories are, and really other things that are causing our deficit are other things that are not a part of our line item in our committed funds? Is that making sense?
Yeah, I think there's a lot in there. I mean, those designations are in set buckets, and if we miss on a particular, I think what you're asking is, let's say we have 5 million in there and we miss Peasers by whatever, a million, do we reduce that to 4, and call it that it's attributed to that? And I think you can do it that way, but I think there are also kind of buckets to show kind of trends to have money available as we see things going up. So you can adjust it down, but you're probably just going to adjust it back up from a wording perspective to make sure that you're covered for future as well as these, different categories keep going up. So you'll probably keep similar wording as long as it's accurate. If things are going down for whatever reason, which they typically don't, but maybe we only need 3 million there. Maybe 5 million isn't the right number. Maybe it should be 3 million, and that's kind of where we're trending. Then we adjust it to 3 million. You guys can adjust that up and down regardless, or however you want. And then while I have the mic, I'm just going to piggyback. I think it is a good idea if we have a set thing that we know that you all agree to is going to happen in 4 years. Like, this is a wish list. This isn't all going to happen. But if you have a set item that you want to say, hey, each year I want to set aside $1 million for the next, or whatever, $500,000 for the next 4 years to cover, the turf replacement, to cover the track, whatever that is. I think that's a great idea to pull that out of the general fund, so that way you have it in the capital in 4 years. There's no question asked. I wouldn't go, and this is just Jason Browse, I wouldn't necessarily go and say, hey, we got to cover $15 million of all these items. We got to move $1 million every year over to capital. And then we're like, oh, now we don't have it over here and we can't move it back the other way. So again, I would just say, if you have something that's definitely going to happen, I think that's a great idea that we can, put that in the budget, that, hey, we're going to move $500,000 from general fund over to capital to plan for item X.
Can we ask the district to look at that? I'm thinking, I don't know why, I'm thinking of the field and the track. Like, we just put in a turf field. We knew that in, 10 years, we were going to have to do it again. We've made no provisions for that to happen. We know that's going to happen. We're not going to put in a turf field for $1 million and let it go to crap. So that's one that I think we definitely should be planning for. The track, the same. So if the district knows that and we're able to plan that accordingly, because let's face it, if it's $100,000 a year for the next 10 years, we're not going to find $100,000 in our budget every year to put aside for a turf field. But we know we're going to have to come up with $1 million in 10 years. I think it would be prudent to move that money into a fund specifically designated for it, is what I'm asking. You said it much more eloquently than I did. But if the district could look at that and bring it back to the board, I think it would be prudent for us to entertain that.
And we also have a capital fund. We have $1.8 million over there, outside of this 2024 loan proceeds, which we're doing different things. We do have $1.8 million over there as well. So you also kind of got to look at it that way and be like, okay, well, how much do I want to have over there? And I know I hear a lot of, hey, there's $18 million in the fund balance. That's too much. What is the right number? What is the fund balance you want? Because it does. It sounds like a lot. But it kept us out of a lot of jails this past fall whenever there was no budget. There were schools that were taking loans out, paying interest because they didn't have the fund balance to be able to cover the 4 months or 5 months or whatever. Luckily, we did. And we were probably safe for another 2 or 3. But if they would have punted that down, then we would have been having to take additional loans out and paying interest to cover our day-to-day expenses. So I think it would be good to know, what is a fund balance you feel comfortable with setting at. So I know it seems like a lot. I know that you might have thought that it was going up. It's been really holding steady the last couple of years, and my goal is to hopefully after this year to have something relatively close. But again, I don't think you're gonna see a big positive between your revenues and expenses. I think, we're shooting for zero. Are we gonna have the $2.3 million budget loss? Boy, I hope not. I'm not seeing that right now. Next year, we did tighten the budget for next year's budget, where I forget, it was 1.2 million or something like that. I hope we don't hit that, but I'm also not confident that we're gonna stay at zero either going forward as well. So, again, I think there's a lot of things that, you guys can talk about, maybe set your guidelines on where you wanna be, how much do you want in capital, how much do you want in your fund balance, but I think it's a good idea to start planning ahead for definite items here. And, maybe just be cognizant of, hey, there's some other things that, might be coming. And also, I want to, I know Marcy was talking about, smoothing and things like that. And 27, 28 might be a little light. We could maybe move some stuff into that. That's a great idea. I wouldn't get too concerned with whatever the 5-year number was that seemed to go back down, because there's going to be all kinds of new items over the next 4 years that'll increase that number. But yeah, we should move some of that stuff forward. We should probably talk more about capital than what we do. We spend a lot of time on the general fund, but we can have more discussions on capital to nip some of these things in the bud, because we do have a little bit of money to take care of some of these things already without potentially having to move some of this.
And I would appreciate your guidance on that. And PSBA has come out with guidance and guidelines of what should be in, the fund balance, what it should be. And some of that's pretty disingenuous as well. But that information is out there. So I'd appreciate your guidance on that. And the amount we have in the capital reserves right now, I wouldn't want to use that for anything else. Just being on the board at the tech school, I mean, they had a fuel leak, and it's cost millions and millions of dollars, and we are now struggling over there without any type of, almost no fund balance dedicated to PSERS or anything, and almost no capital reserves, because we had to spend it all down and still ask the districts for money. Who knows if we have a fuel leak that spills over into Susquenita River over here or whatever. We don't know, and we have to be prepared for that, and the tech school was to some extent, and now they're starting basically over again. So I understand all that, and I as a business manager, you really, I think, have learned a lot and grown a lot and are teaching us a lot, and I respect that. And I would really appreciate your guidance on what we're talking about tonight. But I would like to talk about it more.
Seems like certainly a good place to end those discussions. And a good place to have these robust discussions, because yes, while I joke, this is a maintenance plan, it is a financial plan that's attached to a maintenance plan. And Mr. Brow said it really well, that this is a plan. A plan can go astray. There could be things added, subtracted. There could be opportunities that we want to take advantage of that come our way, that we are able to accomplish some things in the future if those opportunities arise and present themselves. One thing that I can honestly say is that our team is not afraid of some sweat equity when it comes to looking at the right opportunities that are there that may not cost the district funds later on. So we don't want to add something that's going to continue that we can't maintain and sustain. So it's something we look at across the board. Any public comment? Any online public comment? Hearing none? See everybody June 16th. Have a great night.